Welcome back to OLM 2, Topic, Strategy, Organizing, and Outlining. In Part 1, we learned about topic, strategy, rhetorical purpose, specific purpose, and the thesis statement. Part 2 will now deal with organizing and introduce outlining. Having a nicely organized speech is critical to the success of your presentation. Why? Well, most importantly is that a disorganized speech will be very confusing to your audience. Clear organization does wonders for your audience. It imposes order on your presentation, it helps your audience grasp main and supporting points, and finally, clear organization is critical in organizational communication. Clear organization is critical in oral communication. Later on in this module, we're going to do a food activity, and at that time, I'm going to ask you to explain why organization is important in reference to the food activity. The organization of your speech began with the selection and narrowing of your topic through the rhetorical purpose and the specific purpose and the thesis statement. This process of organization continues now with the identification and selection of your main points. We will cover how to find your sources and create your main points and your supporting materials later in our semester. However, today we're just going to focus on the selection of those main points. Please make sure that you choose ideas that help to make sense of the content and are the most important ideas for your listeners to retain. Our next few slides highlight a number of considerations that need to be made when selecting a main point. To mention a few, remember your audience. Remember that your range of main points is 2 to 5 with a target of 3. And finally, look for ways to consolidate and/or eliminate if possible. Keep in mind that your goal is to make sure that you're presenting the best information that supports your rhetorical purpose. A final word on main point organization provides your audience with an easy way to recognize a main point when they hear it. This is called parallel structure. Read through the slide and identify that the same structure was used for all 3 main points. It's important to note that you do not need to use the same number of words or the exact same words, but it's important to make sure that the flow is similar in all points. Here is an example where the thesis statement is, Dawn Wrights is my most admired person. Main point number 1 is, Dawn is a great cook. Main point number 2 is, Dawn is a great mom. And main point number 3 is, Dawn is a great professor. You can see that the feel and the flow are similar in all 3 main points. In our next activity practice, you will create main points following the guidelines we've discussed already. In a moment, I'll ask you to pause the video and to create main points for the 9/11 speech that you have been creating. Make sure that you use the guidelines we've discussed and refer to my main points as samples to help you create yours. Pause your video now and create your main points. Thank you. The next critical step in organization is the arrangement of our main points. For the sake of our class, we will deal with 6 common methods of speech organization. These methods are spatial, causal, comparison, problem cause solution, chronological, and topical. The first of these is spatial. Spatial pattern is where each point can be seen geographically or physically, essentially going from one point or place to another. Our second type of pattern is the causal pattern. This is where the points reveal a cause and effect relationship. For example, eating healthy, regular exercise, and avoiding dangerous substance leads or affects good health. The next pattern is the comparison pattern. In a comparison pattern, the points discuss major similarities and differences between 2 items. Next is the problem cause solution pattern. This is where the points persuade your audience to take action or support a specific policy by first arguing that a problem exists, second, identifying the causes of that problem, and third, proposing a solution. Much later in the semester, when we introduce our persuasive speech, we will revisit this concept of problem, cause, solution, as this will be the pattern that we use for our persuasive speeches. Here is an example of a problem, cause, solution pattern. A thesis statement is, buy a hybrid car. The first main point is, air pollution is a serious problem. The second main point is the cause, which is fuel inefficient vehicles are a major cause of pollution. And the third main point is the solution. A switch to hybrid cars would decrease pollution. Our next arrangement pattern is the chronological or temporal pattern. Essentially, this is when each point is in a chronological or a time-based sequence. Our last pattern for arranging is the topical pattern. This is a speech in which the main points are developed separately and are generally connected together within the introduction and the conclusion. We will now continue with our activity based on our September 11th, 2001 subtopic. Please take a moment and pause the video and choose a pattern of arrangement for your 9/11 activity. Pause the video now. As we continue through our series of good choices on our path to effective public speaking, one of the best ways for making our audience able to follow our speech without any difficulty is by using organizing words and sentences. We do this to make it easy for our audience to listen to and to understand our speech. We use these things throughout our speech. These organizing words and sentences include transitions, internals, previews and summaries, signposts. Essentially, they are roadmaps or directions for our audience to follow our speech. Transitions are sentences that link one point in your speech to the next. When you're creating transitions, it's important to signal the end of the previous point and the beginning of the next point. Internal previews and summaries are a critical part of transitions. In fact, for my class, I consider a transition to be complete when you have identified an internal preview and an internal summary. Internal summaries are a review of the materials that you just said in the prior main point, and an internal preview presents a short list or idea of what is to come in the next main point. Here you can see that there are two parts to a transition. Take a look at this picture and see how the two parts work together to create a complete transition with an internal summary, which is the reference to the previous idea, and an internal preview, which is the introduction of the next idea. The next concept that we must consider in using organizing words and sentences are signposts. Signposts are words or phrases in sentence that help the audience understand the speech's structure. Signposts do a number of things. They show you are at a specific place in the speech. They can be used to cite research, and or they can be used to indicate that a key point is coming. There is a difference between transitions and signposts. Signposts are small signs that show direction or structure, whereas billboards act as transitions from one place to another. We have an old adage in public speaking. This old adage is simple. In public speaking, you tell the audience what you're going to tell them, then you tell them, and then you tell the audience what you told them. This old adage is really helpful to us in reminding us to make sure that we're providing the audience with organization and structure and giving them clues throughout the speech where we are. Here in our next practice activity, you will practice creating a transition between your main points. Please keep in mind that you must make a complete transition using an internal summary and an internal preview. This concludes part 2 of our OLM2 video on topic strategy, organizing, and outline. Part 2 essentially covered the concept of organizing, and when you begin part 3 in a moment, you will understand the concept of outlining.